What's going on, everyone? So, the Utah Jazz are not extending Walker Kessler, which will make him a restricted free agent next NBA offseason. Now, Walker Kessler and Victor Wembanyama, I think, would be a terrifying pairing on the interior. I've talked on this channel on several occasions about Walker Kessler being with the San Antonio Spurs. Look, Wemby, right? Obviously, he can play the 5. He's excellent at the 5, but I do think he can play at the 4 as well. He wants to stretch the floor. He wants to take, 8 to 10 threes a game. So I've talked about how, like with Luke Kornet, for example, I think Luke Kornet could do wonders for this Spurs team this year because his ability to protect the rim as well as be, an offensive rebounder, get you second chance opportunities and whatnot, while Wemby's trying to stretch the floor, take his threes, operating in the mid-range, all that stuff, right? He wants to be more, we've talked about Kevin Durant, then Hakeem, which I think is funny because he's actually recently worked out with Hakeem. So maybe he's trying to make that shift. Maybe he's trying to make that adjustment. But especially if we start seeing him kind of continue to take 7, 8, 9, 10 threes a game on average, then I do think that there's a lot of sense to be made in bringing in another big man, right? Because you look at this roster. To me, the only real question mark as far as position of need is the 4 spot. The guard position, you got plenty of guard to play. You got plenty of, you have too many. You're going to have to make some decisions at some point. Same thing with the 3. I think you're fine with the 3 position. Think you're good. Now, you could go with guys like Harrison Barnes, stuff like that at the 4 this season. Jeremy Sohan, we'll see what he can kind of improve on and what he can be as a player. Can he start, being better from the 3-point range and whatnot? Kind of see who kind of rises to the top for this Spurs team. It's not something that I think the Spurs need to necessarily go rush to go do. I mean, if you wanted to, I wouldn't be no, right? I do think, there's going to be several teams that are interested in Walker Kessler. Boston was a team that was really interested in him. Lakers are a team that's really interested in him. Chicago could use kind of a Yunzen. I think he makes some sense for Chicago. There's a handful of teams that just off the top of my head make a lot of sense for Walker Kessler. Spurs are one of those teams in my opinion. Right? Because, again, the kind of glaring hole right now is the 4. A lot of question marks about the 4. Well, if you go get Walker Kessler, now you can just move Wemby to the 4. You have the best defensive front court in all of basketball, and it wouldn't even be close, right? The only center that is as good, if not better in some areas, than Victor Wembanyama is Walker Kessler. Literally, Walker Kessler's numbers are astonishing, right? And again, in many areas, better than Victor Wembanyama's right now. Now, experience, stuff like that, right? It'll come. And Wemby, I think Wemby's going to win Defensive Player of the Year every year as long as he plays 65 games or they get voter fatigue. And they're all right, we've given him 18 straight seasons. Time to give it to somebody else, that kind of thing. But, to me, I look at Walker Kessler and Victor Wembanyama. Walker Kessler gives you that rim protection, gives you that defensive versatility. Also a guy that can score a little bit around the rim. Definitely a development guy. Definitely needs to work a little more on his offense. He's even shown the ability to stretch the floor a little bit, knock down the 3 ball. Not something I'd want him to do regularly, but it is a good sign that he may be able to develop in a bit of a floor space, right? Again, I'm not against Wemby and guys taking threes. It's just an abundance. When half of your attempts and you're 8 feet 12 inches with a 22-foot wingspan and go gadget arms, you should not be taking half of your field goal attempts from 3. If he's taking 20 attempts and he's taking 5 to 7 threes, fine. If he's taking a quarter to maybe a third of your attempts from 3-point range, good. But you shouldn't be taking 18 attempts and 9 of them are from 3-point range when you're the center, right? Even Karl Anthony Towns, who is looked at as if not the best 3-point shooting big man ever, who's a career 40% guy, he's not even taking a. Steph Curry, who's the greatest shooter ever, he only averages 11 for his career, right? Wemby's trying to outpace that. And, if Wemby can get to the point where he's shooting 40+% from 3-point range, then sure, light it up, right? But he's not there yet, right? So to me, I'd kind of like to see him take a little step back on the threes, shoot around, 5 to 6 range, especially if he starts getting into the 20s as far as field goal attempts go. I think that could be good. But again, you bring in a Walker Kessler as your starter. move a Victor Wembanyama to your 4. Now you have the 2 bigs, which you're seeing in the NBA, the big man kind of making a resurgence. You have 2 versatile defensive big men at that. You're probably, and look, Brian Wright himself said he wants to have a defensive identity, that he wants this team to be one of the best defensive teams in all of basketball. Well, adding Walker Kessler alongside Victor Wembanyama probably ensures that you are. If not, you're the best defensive team in all of basketball. Good luck scoring around the rim. And then when Wemby gets the night off, you still have Kessler. If Kessler gets the night off, just slide Wemby to the 5 and you're there. And you could still have Luke Cornett as a backup in that 3 big rotation. Like, it'd be ridiculous, right? Like, so to me, I think if you're going to, Kessler is a guy that not only makes sense, he's young enough to kind of fit the timeline of all these other young guys, right? He's a guy that I think you wouldn't have to necessarily sell the farm. You'd have to pay a little bit, but I don't think you'd have to, sell the farm in order to go get him. And he's cheap enough right now, because he'd need a new contract, but he's cheap enough right now where you could solving the trade is super easy and simple, right? And Spurs have an abundance of assets, right? Maybe you're even expanding the trade and going for a bigger trade. Like, there's flexibility, that there's options there that the Spurs could look into and explore. But I really like the idea of Walker Kessler and Victor Wembanyama as pairings, right? I've seen people throw out what about Walker Kessler as a backup? Problem is, he's going to be due a new contract, and he's probably going to get 18 to 20 million, if not maybe a little more, 22 million range. He's going to get starting center money, which starting center money is in that 18 to 20 million range. So are you really paying somebody $20 million to be a backup for you? Probably not. Right? But again, you need that start. You need that guy that can be that defensive anchor, be that defensive piece alongside Wemby, right? Now you have that defensive versatility. Now you have Wemby in that kind of free safety, kind of scout role where he can be the help defender, defend out on the perimeter or whatnot. So I just think you'd be elite defensively. Walker Kessler can defend in the pick and roll. He can defend out on the perimeter, all that stuff. You have everything. And also, now Wemby doesn't have to bang with the big boys, which is another thing. Right? You look at the Western Conference, it is flushed with just big, European physical centers that are, you think of Jokic and Şengün and Sabonis and Ivica Zubac and all these centers, right? Zach Edey, right? These guys that are all big, physical, trying to body you. And now Wemby's got to match up against those guys possession after possession after possession. If you can have a guy like a Walker Kessler that could do that, let him kind of take the wear and tear so Wemby can, be more healthy, operate in different ways. Plus, Wemby's just so versatile. You can run different actions and different sets and stuff like that still. I just think that could maybe unlock this team a little more and would make some sense. Obviously, it comes down to what would you have to give up? What would be the cost? Things like that. How much money does he want? If he wants 25, 30 million, I think it's a hard pass. But if he's I want that 18, 20 million range, probably look to go do that. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. We enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.